I was walking through the city center last week and found myself on the edge of a massive political protest. The air was thick with chanting, a sea of faces, some angry, some hopeful. But the one thing that unified the hall, held high on thousands of placards and banners, was a single image, a deep red rose. It was their banner, their identity, the symbol of everything they were fighting for. Standing next to me, a tourist was trying to get a good photo. He lowered his phone and turned to his friend, his voice filled with genuine confusion. "I don't get it," he said. "Why is everyone so worked up about a flower festival?" In that one moment, a symbol that defined an entire political movement, a logo representing decades of struggle and belief, was flattened into mere horticulture. It wasn't that he was wrong. It was, after all, a picture of a rose. But his inability to see past the object, the idea it represented, revealed a gap, a dangerous gap. And it's in that chasm between what a thing is and what it means that our most important conversations fall apart. And that, for me, is the core of what we're diving into today. This deep dive is all about understanding that dangerous gap, the space between the literal interpretation of something and its deeper, often symbolic, meaning. We'll investigate how our own backgrounds and even our education could profoundly shape how we perceive the world. Then, we're going to unpack the fascinating ways that meaning is actually constructed and communicated, especially in high-stakes environments like politics, where every word can be a strategic maneuver.
It's truly striking how often we encounter this gap in our daily lives, sometimes without even realizing it. That tourist seeing only a flower. Well, it's a perfect illustration, isn't it? It's not just about missing a casual reference. It's about missing an entire vital layer of reality that's absolutely crucial to understanding human interaction, culture, and even ourselves. It really is the difference between just hearing sounds and understanding a symphony.
You know, that idea of meaning being lost or even educated out of you really struck a chord with me. And I recently stumbled upon a story that perfectly illustrates this gap. It really tugged at my heartstrings, actually. It's about a woman named Lena, who grew up in Eastern Europe in the late 80s. Her country was undergoing immense change, a real period of upheaval. In her literature class, they were studying this famous national poem about a solitary oak tree on a hill. You know, a tree that had weathered countless storms. It was a well-known piece, practically part of the national identity. For her essay, Lena wrote passionately that the oak tree symbolized her country's spirit enduring, scarred by history, but ultimately unbreakable. She saw its deep, sprawling roots as the nation's profound history and its unwavering resilience as a promise for the future. It was quite beautiful. But her teacher, a stern one who was, well, a product of a rigid, state-controlled education system, failed her on the assignment. The feedback in sharp red ink was devastatingly simple. An oak is a tree. Its roots are for water. This is a biology lesson, not a fantasy. And Lena recounted that for years afterward, every single time she saw an oak tree, she felt nothing. Just nothing. It was just wood and leaves. The magic, the profound meaning she once perceived had been educated right out of her. Such a profound sadness, isn't it? A dangerous gap where the richness of meaning was simply extinguished.
That story, Lena's experience, is incredibly poignant.
Yeah.
And what's particularly compelling here is how an education system, perhaps unintentionally, can train us to ignore anything beyond the surface. It's exactly like you said, teaching someone to read music, but only letting them see the individual notes, never the grand melody, never the emotional resonance of the composition.
Right.
This really highlights a profound problem in how knowledge is often conveyed. When education systems prioritize literal word association, when they insist that an oak is a tree and its roots are for water, and nothing more, they actively impede a society's capacity for nuanced, abstract thought and critical engagement. They teach students what to think, not how to think.
Exactly.
Think about it. Students are often taught this is how mitochondria function, rather than being encouraged to ask, why do they function that way? Or what broader role do they play in the tapestry of life? This focus on rote memorization over genuine understanding is incredibly detrimental.
Right.
It turns learners into passive recipients of information. You know, used to receiving information as unquestionable facts or givens, which makes them highly susceptible to accepting anything conveyed to them via any means as factual or reliable, even if it's sheer assumption or falsehood.
Wow.
It limits their ability to connect ideas, to see patterns, and to engage with the world on a deeper, more meaningful level. You end up with a populace that struggles to grapple with anything that isn't explicitly laid out in front of them.
That's a truly alarming thought, especially when you consider the sheer volume of unfiltered information we're all swimming in every day. And it's not just about poetry or biology, right? This literalism can derail even the most basic human interactions. I heard about this wild Thanksgiving dinner debate right in the thick of a contentious election season, and it just perfectly sums up this problem. My friend told me about his uncle, a farmer from the Midwest, who arrived at dinner wearing a plain baseball cap with a golden sheaf of wheat on it. To the uncle, it was obvious. It symbolized hard work, the heartland, tradition, wholesome family values. Totally straightforward, right?
Seems simple enough, yeah.
But his nephew, a university student, tried to explain that for many, that same symbol, in that specific heated political context, had become intertwined with this much more complex and troubling nationalist ideology. He brought up how similar imagery had been used historically in certain movements to signify ethnic purity, a pure harvest of a certain kind of people.
Oh, wow.
And the uncle, confronted with this layered interpretation, absolutely exploded in anger, shouting, "It's just wheat. You college kids have to ruin everything." The argument totally shattered the dinner. You can almost feel the tension, can't you? That insistence on seeing only the surface.
Yeah, and zooming out a bit, this insistence on literal interpretation, as you so vividly described with the Thanksgiving incident, can lead to what I think of as ideological blindness. It's not about one side being right or wrong in their beliefs per se, but about the fundamental inability to see beyond the object itself. The uncle saw a plant. The nephew saw a coded message, a historical echo. This pervasive societal reliance on literal linguistic interpretation profoundly erodes nuanced political discourse. It essentially allows dangerous ideas to hide in plain sight, wrapped in seemingly innocuous literalism.
Hiding in plain sight. That's a good way to put it.
Yeah, and it hinders a deeper comprehension of complex socio-political movements and their underlying symbolic frameworks. Political language, as critical discourse analysis reveals, is rarely neutral. It's a calculated and strategic tool used to construct ideology and shape public opinion. When we can only see wheat and not the historical or ideological connotations, we lose the ability to have a meaningful conversation, and discourse devolves into shouting matches, precisely because one party can't or won't acknowledge the symbolic layer. This isn't just an academic point. It directly impacts our ability to engage in healthy, productive civic life.
It's incredible how deeply ingrained this literalism can become. It even affects how we experience profound art. Imagine being on your dream trip, looking at something truly ancient and revered and feeling completely frustrated, even annoyed. I recently heard about Marcus, a data-driven software developer from California. He's this incredibly logical, efficiency-focused guy, very literal. So on his dream trip to Kyoto, he visits the famous Rishanji Temple with its Zen rock garden. Those 15 rocks arranged in white gravel, a truly iconic minimalist masterpiece. He stands there for a long time, meticulously counting the rocks, noting their precise placement. He reads the placard, which explicitly states the garden's meaning is not explicit and is up to the viewer's interpretation.
Okay.
And he is visibly frustrated. He sees a well-maintained, aesthetically pleasing arrangement of rocks, but he feels like he's missing some crucial punchline, like there must be a hidden code, a puzzle he's not solving.
The literal mind wanting a literal answer.
Exactly. Later, he overhears a tour guide talking about what the garden could represent. Islands in an ocean, a tiger with her cubs, or the vast emptiness of the mind. The guide explains its purpose isn't to be a static picture, but a catalyst for contemplation, an invitation to a deeper state of being. Marcus just shakes his head, walks away, feeling the entire experience was pretentious and meaningless. He came to see a famous garden, and he saw rocks. Mission accomplished from his perspective, but a missed opportunity for something truly profound.
That really begs the question, doesn't it? When we only value the literal, it's not just political nuance we lose, it's a vital part of our cultural soul. It's a philosophical deafness, a kind of existential blindness, in a way.
Philosophical deafness, I like that.
Marcus's experience highlights how a culture's habitual adherence to literal interpretation leads to a diminished capacity for profound self-reflection and a superficial engagement with rich historical and artistic symbolism. That rock garden is a 500-year-old invitation to look past the surface, to engage with history, philosophy, and the very nature of perception itself. To look at it and see only rocks is, as you said, a profound failure of imagination. It means you can consume all the art and history in the world, visit every famous landmark. But if you can't understand that a rock might be more than a rock, that it can embody abstract concepts like emptiness, transience, or the vastness of the universe, then you're just a tourist in your own culture. You're looking at artifacts without ever truly understanding the conversation they are meant to inspire within you, or the deeper human experiences they represent. This relentless literalism prevents us from tapping into the deeper layers of meaning that truly enrich our experience of the world and connect us to the broader human story.
So if literalism can blind us to so much, what's the antidote? Is there a framework, a way of thinking that helps us unravel these layers of meaning and see the world with new eyes? I've heard some fascinating ideas about cultural semiotics in this context. Can you tell us what that field explores? It sounds pretty mind-bending.
It can be, in the best way. What's truly remarkable is that cultural semiotics is precisely that framework. It studies culture as a vast, intricate symbol system. Think of culture itself as a macro code, a collective non-genetic memory that not only defines but actively operates our understanding of the world.
A macro code, okay.
Yeah, it's how societies remember, communicate, and evolve their shared meanings. Any object or action that is meaningful to a cultural group can be treated as a symbol, from a handshake to a flag, from a particular type of food to a specific piece of music. Understanding a culture, then, involves identifying the hidden rules or conventions of these codes.
So it's like learning the grammar of a culture.
In a way, yes. And when we learn these codes, often unconsciously from childhood, we often accept the embedded values and worldviews that come with them, almost as if they are simply part of the natural order of things. This isn't just about language, it's about gestures, clothing, art, architecture, even the way we organize our cities, anything that communicates meaning within a specific cultural context. The core insight here is that when you understand cultural semiotics, you gain a kind of superpower. You start seeing the invisible strings that pull our understanding.
I like the sound of a superpower.
Right. You recognize how a simple image, like that rose, or even a particular color, is imbued with decades of meaning that can shape a political movement without anyone explicitly stating it. It's about decoding the unspoken, the culturally embedded.
That's a really powerful way to think about it, seeing the invisible strings.
Yeah.
And these codes aren't just about what something is on the surface, are they? It's like a word having multiple layers, almost like an onion of meaning, you know? You have the direct, obvious meaning, and then all these other subtler meanings attached to it, depending on the context.
Exactly. You've hit on a fundamental distinction in semiotics. Denotation versus connotation. Denotation is the first literal level of meaning. It's the straightforward, objective dictionary definition.
Like rose means a flower.
Precisely. A rose simply denotes a type of flowering plant from the genus Rosa. That's its primary explicit meaning. But then there's connotation, which is the second, richer level of meaning. This is where the rose gains additional, often culturally or emotionally attached meanings. So while its denotation is a flower, its connotations can be love, beauty, passion, romance, or even revolution and secrecy, depending on the historical and social context.
Got it.
Think about the color white. Denotatively, it's a color. Connotatively, in many Western cultures, it signifies purity, innocence, or weddings. But in some Eastern cultures, it connotes mourning or death. Same denotation, vastly different connotations. Roland Barthes, a key figure in semiotics, explored this, suggesting that signification operates on these different levels, with denotation as the first step and connotation as a subsequent, more complex layer built upon that literal sign.
So a rose truly isn't just a rose because of all these layers of accumulated meaning. That makes perfect sense. And then there's an even deeper layer you mentioned earlier, something beyond mere connotation, something that feels almost foundational to how we understand things, the concept of myth. What distinguishes myth from just a really strong connotation? Is it just, like, bigger?
That's a crucial question. Myth, in the semiotic sense, isn't necessarily about untrue stories or ancient folklore, though it can include those. Instead, it refers to symbols or narratives that have acquired such a deep cultural significance that their underlying historical or social origins are obscured, making them appear natural and universal.
Ah, so the origin gets forgotten.
Exactly. In Barthes' view, myth serves a crucial ideological function of naturalization. It takes dominant cultural values, attitudes, and beliefs and makes them seem completely natural, invisible, as if they're simply the way things are, beyond question or debate. It's about taking something constructed by humans and making it appear as if it's an objective truth.
Okay, examples.
Sure. For instance, the myth of the self-made individual in certain societies might present economic success as purely a result of individual effort, masking the societal structures or privileges that might also contribute.
Right.
Or the idea of a nuclear family being the only natural family unit, when historically, family structures have been incredibly diverse. Myth can be regarded as an extended metaphor that helps us understand our experiences within a culture, but it does so by making a specific ideological viewpoint feel like common sense. It normalizes certain ways of thinking.
So it's like a silent agreement we all make about what's normal or true, driven by these hidden meanings. It almost feels like everything exists in its own symbolic ecosystem, right? Where nothing means anything in isolation. It all fits into this giant interconnected web of meaning. You mentioned the concept of a semiosphere earlier, and it sounds like that's exactly what you're describing now.
Absolutely. Zooming out again, the semiosphere is this complete semiotic space. Yuri Lotman, who developed this concept, argued that the minimum functional mechanism for culture isn't a single symbol, a single text, or even a single language system. Instead, it's this complete semiotic space where everything interacts and derives its meaning.
Like an ecosystem for meaning.
Precisely. A single symbol or a text only makes sense when it's immersed and interacts within this broader, multifaceted cultural continuum. Think of it like the Earth's biosphere. Just as life needs a complex ecosystem to thrive, meaning needs the semiosphere. It's the entire universe of cultural meaning, the environment in which all communication occurs and derives its significance.
Okay.
It controls the operation of languages within the range of cultures, and it's why understanding an advertisement from a different country can require more than just understanding the literal language. It requires cultural competence to decode the embedded semiotic meanings. This dynamic process allows culture to select what's integrated and what's omitted, constantly updating its codes and constantly shaping our understanding of reality. For example, the semiosphere of a scientific community would include not just their technical jargon, but also their shared values about evidence, peer review, and the history of their field, all contributing to how new research is interpreted.
Right.
Or the semiosphere of a particular online subculture where memes, inside jokes, and specific modes of communication form a dense web of shared meaning.
So if our world is this massive semiotic space filled with these deep layered codes, it makes me wonder how our brains even navigate all this information.
It feels like our minds must be hardwired for this too, right? To find the most efficient path to understanding, almost like a mental GPS guiding us to meaning. This brings us to Sperber and Wilson's relevance theory. It sounds like the idea that human cognition is geared towards maximizing relevance, aiming for maximum cognitive effects with minimal processing effort. It's about getting the most bang for your mental buck, so to speak. That's a perfect way to put it. The core insight from relevance theory is this. Our brains are designed to be efficient. We automatically seek out information that is most relevant to us, that offers the greatest cognitive benefit for the least amount of mental energy. It's about optimizing our understanding.
Okay, so how does that play out in conversation?
Well, how do communicators, especially clever ones, leverage this mental shortcut? It's called ostensive inferential communication. The speaker produces a stimulus, whether it's an utterance, a gesture, an image, or even a deliberate silence, that implies a guarantee of relevance.
Okay.
And you, the listener, then actively infer the intended meaning. Imagine a friend winks at you when they say, "I'm so thrilled to be here." The wink, that visual stimulus, shows you they intend a different, often sarcastic meaning.
Right, you get it instantly.
Exactly. Your brain, seeking relevance, quickly infers the sarcasm. That's ostensive inferential communication in action. You pick up on the hint and get the real message. This process relies on two types of intentions. Informative intention, which is the speaker's aim to make certain assumptions manifest or more manifest to the audience, and communicative intention, which is the intention to make that informative intention mutually clear between speaker and audience.
So I want you to know something, and I want you to know that I want you to know it.
Precisely.
That makes so much sense. It's like a shared secret between the speaker and the listener, relying on unspoken cues. And this is where the explicit and implicit come into play, right? The stuff that's said directly and the stuff that's left hanging in the air for us to pick up, like a punchline you have to figure out yourself. So you have explicatures, those assumptions that are explicitly communicated or logically developed from what's said directly. But then there are implicatures, the assumptions that are implied but not explicitly stated. It's the subtext, the unwritten rules, the things you just know without them being said aloud, which often makes communication so much more intriguing.
Precisely. The explicature is the clear, literal part, the decoded message. But the implicature is where the real fun and sometimes the real mischief happens.
Yeah, mischief sounds right.
It's what's not explicitly said, but is definitely conveyed, and it requires your background knowledge to get it. It's like when a teenager says, "I'm so bored." The explicature is that they're bored. Simple enough.
Right.
But the implicature they want you to get is, "Entertain me, buy me something, I expect you to solve this boredom."
Huh. Yes, I know that one well.
Successful communication, from this perspective, aims to improve the hearer's cognitive environment while requiring the least effort. This leads to beneficial cognitive effects, such as strengthening existing information, resolving confusion, or confirming beliefs. The speaker's goal is to simplify their utterance just enough so that you, the hearer, expend minimal mental effort to achieve maximum understanding and derive useful information.
So relevance is about useful info for minimum work.
Exactly. If an input is relevant, its processing should yield some cognitive gains for the hearer. This is why a well-crafted implicit message can be so powerful. It allows the listener to feel they've discovered the meaning themselves, making it more impactful, more memorable, and often more persuasive than simply being told something outright.
Speaking of mischief and powerful persuasive techniques, there's no better place to see this entire framework in action than in the world of politics, where language is definitely not neutral. It's an absolute high-stakes game, isn't it? Political discourse is this public performance where every word, every pause, every gesture is calculated for maximum effect on the audience.
Oh, absolutely. And what's fascinating here is critical discourse analysis, or CDA. It's like having X-ray vision for political speeches, allowing us to see through the surface rhetoric to the underlying strategic intent.
X-ray vision, I like that.
CDA reveals how political language is a deeply calculated and strategic tool used by leaders not just to communicate, but to actively construct ideologies, to shape public opinion, to legitimize their authority, and even to subtly manipulate public discourse. It goes beyond just analyzing what is said, delving into how language operates to establish and maintain power relations, often in ways that are not immediately obvious. CDA uncovers the implicit power structures and covert mechanisms of influence and control embedded right there in the language itself. Politicians aren't just communicating, they're performing, and every lexical choice, every syntactic structure, every rhetorical flourish serves a precise, deliberate purpose. It's a masterclass in strategic communication.
They're not just speaking, they're performing, right? It's a high-stakes public show, whether you're in London, Washington, D.C., or any capital in the world. The underlying strategies are surprisingly universal, crossing cultural boundaries. They might use different accents or specific cultural references, but the fundamental mechanisms of persuasion and influence seem to transcend borders, aiming to activate those cognitive shortcuts we just talked about.
Absolutely. And zooming out a bit, politicians often engage in what's known as ideological naturalization. This is when they present their ideologically charged views as objective truths, as if they're simply undeniable facts of nature rather than specific political positions.
Making opinions sound like facts.
Pretty much. This subtly influences public consciousness without overt coercion. It makes their specific perspective seem like common sense, the only logical way to think about an issue. For example, framing a tax cut as getting the government off your back, rather than a specific economic policy choice. And then there's strategic ambiguity. Keeping things intentionally vague to navigate complex issues and minimize accountability, which can be quite clever and often incredibly frustrating for the public.
Oh yeah, very frustrating.
It allows them to appeal to different groups simultaneously without committing to a specific, potentially controversial stance, providing an easy out if things go wrong or if they need to pivot later. It's a delicate dance of saying enough to be understood by some, but little enough to avoid concrete commitment or criticism from others.
It's truly amazing how these theories play out in real time during these epic political showdowns. I've been looking at some particularly sharp exchanges in the UK Parliament, and the House of Commons, with its direct, often fiery exchanges, really is a masterclass in this kind of strategic communication. Take this exchange between Theresa May and Boris Johnson, for example, regarding COVID rules. May, known for her precise and often critical parliamentary interventions, clearly wasn't pulling any punches.
Indeed. Theresa May, with a distinctively critical tone, was addressing Boris Johnson and his team. She stated, "The COVID regulations impose significant restrictions on the freedoms of members of the public. They had a right to expect their prime minister to have read the rules, to understand the meaning of the rules, and, indeed, those around him to have done so too, and to set an example in following those rules."
That indeed sounds pointed.
Oh, very. Her use of indeed here is highly ironic, subtly but effectively implying Johnson's incompetence and suggesting that those around him also failed to grasp or follow the very rules they imposed. Her explicature, the clear statement, was that Johnson and his team were incompetent regarding the rules and that these rules should apply equally to number 10 Downing Street. But the implicit premise she was laying out for the audience was that the Prime Minister and his staff were not applying rules equally, and that Johnson needed to provide public explanations. The conclusion for the audience, drawn with minimal effort due to her pointed delivery, was that Theresa May was objecting to Johnson's management policy, implying his ignorance, incompetence, and even a rejection of equality in safety regulations. It was a very precise verbal strike. Boris Johnson's reply, delivered in a quiet, serious tone of voice, was a repetitive and defensive counter. No, that is not what the Gray Report says. Then an interruption, and again, it is not what the Gray Report says.
Just repeating it.
Exactly. His repetition here isn't just emphasis, it aims to deny all accusations, striving for optimal relevance by simplifying his denial so that hearers expend minimal effort. He wants his audience's cognitive environment to be improved by his clear refusal to accept a premise. The explicature is his direct, unequivocal denial. The implicatures are that Theresa May is against his policy, has doubts about the application of COVID regulations, rejects inequality, and intends for Johnson to provide public explanations. Johnson's strategy here is to create a contradictory cognitive effect, countering May's assertions with repeated, firm denials, hoping to overwrite her accusations in the minds of the listeners. It's a classic deflection strategy, focusing on one specific report to sidestep the broader implications of her critique.
You can almost feel the tension in those repeated denials. It's like he's trying to hammer home his point through sheer repetition, a kind of linguistic bludgeon. Now let's move to another high-stakes moment. Keir Starmer versus Elizabeth Truss on economic plans, a truly pivotal moment in recent British politics.
Ah, yes. In that exchange, Keir Starmer used powerful repetition and parallel structure to devastating effect, a technique designed for maximum cognitive impact. He declared, I have the list here, 45p tax cut gone, corporation tax cut gone, 20p tax cut gone, 2-year energy freeze gone, tax-free shopping gone, economic credibility gone, and then the kicker, so why is she still here? Delivered with challenging eye contact.
Oof, that's brutal.
It is. This simple, structured syntax reduces processing effort for the audience, making his message about economic failures incredibly clear and easy to grasp. His explicatures are undeniable statements of fact, 45p tax cut is gone, and so on. But the higher-level explicature, which the audience quickly infers, is that Starmer believes Truss's actions directly caused severe economic deficiency, and that he fundamentally rejects her handling of British affairs. The strong implicatures for the audience are crystal clear. Truss is not the right person for the job and should resign. The clear, repetitive structure helps ensure that the audience computes these conclusions with minimal cognitive effort, almost like a mental checklist of failures. Elizabeth Truss's response was equally strategic, aimed at leveraging shared understanding. I'm a fighter and not a quitter, also delivered with challenging eye contact.
It's a famous line.
Exactly. She uses a metaphorical political quotation, channeling Peter Mandelson, a former influential politician, known for his resilience. By invoking this well-known phrase, she leverages mutual manifestation. The House of Commons, being familiar with such political figures and their influence, can immediately access their encyclopedic knowledge about Mandelson. This minimizes processing effort for the audience and yields high positive cognitive effects. Her explicature is a statement of personal resolve and determination. The higher-level explicatures are that she is a fighter and will not give up her position despite the mounting pressure. The weaker implicatures are that she rejects Starmer's accusations, views herself as strong, and is as resilient as Peter Mandelson.
So projecting strength.
Yes, she's not just stating a fact, she's invoking a powerful political narrative to defend her position and project strength and resilience, implicitly rejecting Starmer's accusations and attempting to change the narrative from one of failure to one of resolve. This is an indirect way to achieve relevance, inviting hearers to access their background knowledge of what a fighter represents in that political context, far beyond the literal meaning of the words.
That's a classic political move, isn't it? Invoking historical figures or well-known phrases to draw strength and project a certain image. It attempts to shift the focus from policy failure to personal fortitude. Moving on, let's look at Boris Johnson's famous skills moment during a debate on confidence in Her Majesty's government and Kevin Brennan's absolutely biting reply. Johnson, ever the showman, really leaned into his rhetorical style there.
Absolutely. Boris Johnson emphatically stated, of course, we gave and are giving people skills, accompanied by emphatic hand movements.
Very memorable.
Deliberately so. His repetition here is designed to activate the audience's inferential capacities, conveying that he is providing many different types of skills, educational, management, health to the public, and doing so with unwavering commitment. This aims to resonate psychologically and cognitively, building broad public support and acceptance for his government's agenda. The explicit premise he wants to convey is that he and the Conservative Party are actively supporting the public's development. The implicit premise is that they are worthy of public trust and continued power because of this.
Okay.
His desired conclusion is that he and his party are making a memorable and beneficial legacy. The repetitive lexical item works to maximize positive cognitive effects, making his commitment to skills abundantly clear and creating a strong sense of certainty around his message. Kevin Brennan's reply, though, was sharp, deeply ironic, and perfectly aimed. It is highly unconventional. Only an unconventional man would want the opportunity to speak at his own funeral.
Ouch. What's the reference there?
Brennan uses irony and a direct cultural reference to Mark Twain's The Adventures of Tom Sawyer, where the titular character and Huck Finn attend their own funeral. This utterance implies his profound rejection of Johnson's statement by calling him unrealistic, narcissistic, and unconventional.
Wow.
The explicature is simply that Johnson's speech is unconventional. But the explicit premise he's drawing upon is that Johnson is constantly breaking rules and norms. The critical implicit premise, dependent on the audience's background knowledge of the Tom Sawyer reference, is that Johnson is close to his end as prime minister, almost witnessing his own political demise.
So it relies on the audience getting the reference.
Exactly. The conclusion is that Johnson is fantasizing, detached from reality, and confusing political operation, essentially calling his current position untenable and his pronouncements delusional. This highlights how crucial shared background knowledge is for activating inferential mechanisms and truly getting the implied, devastating meaning of the retort. Without knowing the Tom Sawyer reference, the sting is lost.
That's some serious shade being thrown. It shows how a well-placed cultural reference, perfectly timed, can totally dismantle an opponent's argument, making them seem out of touch or even delusional. Next up, Angela Rayner and Oliver Dowden, debating the judicial review and the COVID inquiry. Rayner has a reputation for being quite direct, but here she uses something much more subtle, it seems.
Indeed. Angela Rayner, with a sarcastic tone of voice, a slight smile playing on her lips, and a direct gaze towards Dowden, asked, "Speaking of the last election, the Tory manifesto promised to end the abuse of the judicial review. How is it going?"
Just a simple question, but loaded.
Extremely loaded. She expertly uses non-linguistic cues, her tone, her smile, her gaze, and irony to highlight broken promises and imply the Conservative Party's untrustworthiness and even corruption. Her rhetorical question functions as a powerful reminder, triggering optimal relevance for the hearers, improving their cognitive environment by highlighting a promise that was evidently not fulfilled. The explicature is the straightforward statement of the Conservative Party's promise. But the higher-level explicature is that the Conservative Party explicitly lied to win elections. The strong implicatures for the audience are that conservatives are untrustworthy, that they are not fulfilling their promises, and are potentially even breaking the law or acting corruptly. Her aim here is not just to point out a fact, but to profoundly humiliate the Conservative Party, showing the public they fall short of serving because they make promises merely for votes and then deny or ignore them once in power. The audience's laughter in response confirms her success in attracting their attention and achieving her intended cognitive effects of exposing hypocrisy. Oliver Dowden, reacting with a visible smile that indicates he recognizes and somewhat dismisses Rayner's sarcastic remarks, countered with his own rhetorical question. In Wales, they also had a pandemic, and what have the Labour-run Wales authorities done there? No independent inquiry in Wales. As ever, it is one rule for Labour and another for everyone else.
Turning back on her party.
Exactly. Dowden uses emphatic focal stress on no and one, delivered with accompanying hand movements, to strategically redirect Rayner's accusations back at her party. He defends his own party while simultaneously accusing Labour of hypocrisy and authoritarianism. His smile helps to project an image of calm dismissal, suggesting Rayner's attack is easily deflected.
Right.
His explicit premise is that Rayner and her party did nothing significant for the pandemic in Wales regarding an inquiry. The crucial implicit premise is that Rayner has no right to accuse the Tory manifesto of broken promises because her own party, in a position of power, has similar shortcomings. The conclusion is that Dowden is defending his party and the Prime Minister's political decisions by highlighting what he perceives as Labour's double standards. He uses this redirection to provide accessible contextual assumptions, aiming to prove Rayner wrong and highlight what he believes to be Labour's inherent hypocrisy.
What a rhetorical judo move. It's like he uses the opponent's momentum against them, a quick pivot to deflect and counterattack. Finally, let's look at Dominic Raab and Angela Rayner again, this time in a fiery exchange on rail strikes. Raab, known for his combative style, seems to really go for the jugular here.
Dominic Raab was indeed quite aggressive here, engaging in a direct and personal attack, he stated. The right Hun lady has flip-flopped. The right Hun lady has flip-flopped all over the place when it comes to these strikes. Then he lists examples. First, she said they were lose-lose. Then she tweeted that workers were left with no choice. When she was asked by the BBC the straight question, she's normally a straight-shooting politician, do you like the RMT? Of whether she liked the RMT, she said, I'm going to have to go now. I have a train to catch.
Ouch, that anecdote.
Yeah, and he accompanied this with deliberate winks at Rayner, a hand pointing directly at her, a slight smile conveying gloat, and a challenging eye gaze. Raab uses hyperbolic repetition of flip-flopped to accuse Rayner of sudden and inconsistent political opinion changes. He skillfully weaves direct and indirect quotations from her past statements, culminating in that train-to-catch anecdote, which, combined with his non-linguistic cues, is designed to profoundly humiliate Rayner and her party.
What's the implication he's going for?
His aim is to imply hypocrisy, selfishness, and a lack of conviction. His explicit premise is that Rayner and Labour are hypocrites, constantly shifting their stance. The implicit premise is that Rayner is selfish, prioritizing her own convenience over the public's plight, and that the entire party is misusing their authority. The conclusion he wants the audience to draw is that Raab is defaming Rayner and the Labour Party by exposing what he sees as their glaring inconsistencies and selfish behavior. Angela Rayner, however, not one to back down, responded with a composed, almost resting posture and a sharply sarcastic tone. She said, well, that says a lot about the Conservative Party. I will tell Conservative members a few things about militancy. It is this government who are acting in a militant way. Then turning the tables. The Deputy Prime Minister talks about trains. No one can get trains because of his failed transport secretary.
Oh, well, that's the tone.
Absolutely. Her repetition of well at the outset, along with her calm posture and sarcastic tone, automatically triggers relevance and significantly increases positive cognitive effects for her audience. She strategically redirects Raab's accusations back at him and his party, accusing them of the very militancy and failure he tried to pin on her.
Right.
Her linguistic and non-linguistic cues provide massive reinforcement for the propositional content of her utterance. Her explicature is her accusation that the Conservative Party is acting in a militant way and failing to manage the transport system. The implicit premise is that Raab and the Conservative Party are being vicious and pretending to be good, while simultaneously being the true cause of the problems.
Okay.
The conclusion is that the Conservative Party is busy with hypocrisy and failing to do its job, and that Raab is using violent verbal abuse to deflect from their own shortcomings. She very effectively turns the tables on him, using his own rhetoric against him.
So after all this political ping-pong and clever communication, after exploring how words are used not just to convey, but to persuade and even to hide meaning, it becomes crystal clear that true understanding isn't just about the words themselves. It's about a much deeper, more intricate dance, one that philosophers and linguists refer to as hermeneutics. It's about how we interpret everything, from ancient sacred texts to a simple conversation with a friend.
What's truly fascinating here is that hermeneutics, which originally meant the art of interpreting sacred or literary texts, has evolved into something far more fundamental. It shows us that interpretation isn't a marginal activity reserved for difficult cases. It's constitutive of human existence. It's what we do.
So meaning isn't just found, it's made.
Exactly. Meaning doesn't just lie there, static and waiting to be discovered like a hidden object. It happens in interpretation through a dynamic fusion of horizons between the text or phenomenon and the interpreter. This means that language isn't merely an instrument for transmitting thought, a neutral tool. It's an organ that actively shapes our consciousness and worldview.
An organ. Interesting.
Yeah, and this leads to a profound idea, a fundamental metaphorism, where language itself has a metaphorical foundation. Think of how we describe ideas as bright or dark, or problems as heavy or light.
We talk about grasping a concept.
Right, as if it's a physical object. These aren't just figures of speech. They are built into the very structure of our thought processes, underscoring that our very understanding of reality is deeply intertwined with how we interpret and use language, always through a lens of analogy and connection. It's also important to note that the 20th century saw a significant rediscovery of the symbol in Western thought. For a long period, especially from Aristotelian concepts of substance right through Christian dogmatic literalism, Western philosophy largely favored strict literalism, often overlooking or even devaluing the rich, multifaceted nature of
So
symbols.
the symbol was kind of forgotten.
In a way, yeah. The idea that a word or image could hold layers of non-explicit meaning was often treated with suspicion. But with modern hermeneutics and semiotics, we've come to understand that symbols are not just decorative. They are fundamental to how we make sense of our world, how we store collective memory, and how we transmit complex ideas across generations. This rediscovery was pivotal because it allowed us to re-engage with art, literature, and cultural phenomena in a much richer, more profound way, recognizing that their power often lies precisely in what they imply rather than what they explicitly state.
So if our reality itself is intertwined with symbols, and meaning isn't just there, but happens in interpretation, what does that mean for us as individuals living in this world? Are we constantly just creating our own reality, or is there some shared ground?
That raises a critical question for all of us. Symbols aren't just conventional signs or mere copies of objective reality. They are profoundly humanly contaminated representations.
Humanly contaminated.
Yeah, drawing from our collective unconscious and archetypes, shaping our very perception of reality. Our reality is always charged with human significance and imaginary undertones, drawn from this rich symbolic world. It means that interpreting reality is not a passive act. It's an active recreation, influenced by a priori factors in our shared human nature, the predispositions and structures of understanding that are part of being human.
So not pure subjectivity, then.
Right. While this might sound like it leads to pure subjectivity, and there isn't one single direct access to meaning, there are better and worse interpretations. The criterion isn't purely subjective or purely objective, but an intersubjectivity achieved within a communally shared language.
Intersubjectivity.
It's a collective dance of making meaning, constantly evolving through dialogue and shared experience.
Right.
Think of a long-term couple developing their own shared language. And inside jokes, the meaning of certain phrases or gestures isn't literal, but a product of their unique fusion of horizons.
Okay, yeah.
Or a team working on a complex project, where initial interpretations of a brief diverge, but through discussion and collaboration, they arrive at a shared, intersubjective understanding of the task.
Ultimately, then, our very existence is hermeneutical. We are living beings who interpret ourselves interpreting the world. It's an ongoing, dynamic process of becoming ourselves through this constant dance of making meaning, continuously reevaluating and refining our understanding of everything around us. It's not a static state of being, but a continuous journey of understanding and re-understanding.
And that's precisely why language symbols are so crucial for understanding the life world, with all its complexities, its deep desires, its fears, and its hopes. They allow us to access and express the rich, often paradoxical nature of human experience that purely literal concepts might leave opaque. They are the fundamental tools through which we give life a voice, represent its deepest truths, and interpret its profound significance. It's how we navigate the vast, often unsaid landscape of human experience.
And that's our deep dive into the fascinating, complex world where what something is meets what it means.
It's a powerful reminder, I think, that beneath the surface, there's always a richer conversation, a deeper understanding waiting to be uncovered, often with surprising twists and turns that make life so much more vibrant and insightful.
And finding that rich conversation, seeing beyond the literal, well, that's what makes engaging with the world and our understanding of it so much more interesting. Thank you for joining us on this exploration.